you just had a really big, in my eyes, a really big match in your career. Being your tag team partnered with MK Swift. You guys have been a tag team for quite some time, and you guys have built
Yeah.
up this story to where you were going against the Trend Killers for the titles and WWA. And if you lost, you guys had to break up. But if you won, obviously you won the tag team titles. I do like this story. I like that angle in matches, that story, that kind of build that story of this is your last shot. Kind of walk me through building it up. And then that night comes around and it's all or nothing. And you guys get there and it's over.
I mean, it's like it's hard to talk about right now because, like, in my eyes, the wounds are kind of still fresh, and
Sure.
this is all like still new. Um, Man, it was an emotional roller coaster, is all it was. And then I feel like I've seen the comments about our match that we had a couple weeks ago where we did end up having a breakup. Uh, it was a it was a cinematic masterpiece, as some people called it, and like I'm getting emotional just trying to talk
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
because
It's
it's
understandable,
like
man.
you couldn't ask for anything better than what
Mhm.
we did with the Trend Killers this year. I mean, it's only April, but we've been building this up since like December, October, November. But it's like they were our first match as like when me and MK Swift tag team, they were
Mhm.
our very first tag team match. And then it was only like kind of fitting that they were our last.
Right. And that's like I said, that's a great story, and I do love that. I love that stipulation in a match. It brings a
Yeah.
lot more to it. It's because it's not just the titles. It's not just two great tag teams. It's at the end of the day, there's a possibility that one, to me, one of the favorite tag teams in WWE may not be together anymore. So you guys did. I think it was an awesome job all the way around to build up to it, and then obviously, the ending didn't go probably the way you guys wanted it to, but it was still just a great match and the great story altogether. You guys should be really proud of what you've done. This is great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been in a tag team for quite some time, and I believe you've had some single matches throughout your time in WWE. For
Few, yeah.
you, are you more of a tag team guy, or do you want to get more into single stuff and do go that direction?
Well, it's like kind of right now, I kind of don't have the choice considering me and MK
Sure.
had to break up. So I've been wrestling for 5 years. And two of those years I was well, actually one technically. I was in another tag team with another guy and we were called the other guys. And then like I had left the WWA for a year due to like personal like a little fallout, but we worked everything out. I came back. I tried to reform my tag team with that other guy, and then that fell through. And then me and MK Swift came together. And then it's like I've been in a tag team for basically 5 years. So, like for me in this new chapter, it's just like I'm ready for anything.
Sure.
Like I've never been really as a singles guy, so it's like, but like right now, since we lost that match, I kind of have to.
Hmm.
But like right now, being 5 years in, I'm ready for that challenge. It's gonna
Sure.
be weird, definitely, because I've like my psychology up here is tag team wrestling. Now I have to move that towards like more singles competition.
Right. And I've talked to a lot of WWE people on here, and it's a great promotion in this area to work. I think to work for. I think you guys get a lot of exposure. I think you get a lot of
Mhm.
opportunities as far as tag team or single matches on both avenues. So you're called Munchie.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So when I was training, uh, I was doing like these little random promos at home, and like I thought of like doing this stoner type gimmick, a
Sure.
stoner who had the munchies.
Yeah.
And then Chris CCW, he was the one that actually came up with the name Munchie.
Yeah.
And then at first I was like, I don't know. And then like during that time period, I was losing weight. Like I was 340 pounds when I first started with the company. I wasn't training just yet because I
Mhm.
didn't know if I even wanted to be a wrestler at the time. but like I was in the gym constantly, and I got down like when I started training, I was about 230. And
Wow.
then like it was like it's hard to be called Munchie when you're losing all that weight and you're looking like skinny.
Yeah.
But like, 5 years later, I'm not gonna change it. I mean, I technically just added my last name because uh CCW had this talk with me back like a couple weeks ago. He says like, Munchie's cool, but since you're like a singles guy, Munchie Gonzalez sounds even cooler.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's great. I mean, that's great to put he's right. I mean, it's the cooler name, the full name. It's kind of
Yeah.
an old school way of it, of you have to have a full name, you know?
Yeah.
And I like that turn of it. That's pretty cool. So you said you've been in pro wrestling for 5 years. So do you, and like you kind of said you got in there, you didn't really know if you wanted to do it and all that. Is it in you now? Is it one of those things of, man, I am in this 100%. This is the dream. This is what I want to do.
Oh yeah.
I know you've had tons of tag team matches. Do you have
Yeah.
one? Do you have one that sticks out? I mean, obviously the one you just had with the Trend Killers, but is there one before that that sticks out of, that was really some of my best work so far, and I push to get to that level all the time?
Uh Another good storyline. Like last year we were in a storyline with High Society, Ray and Alexander Knight. Uh the last show at the Coliseum in Evansville, we got to close that show. And like what was funny was at the beginning of the year, Ray had asked me, uh, what's some of your goals for wrestling this year? And it's like, I had already won the tag belts with MK Swift, and there's like, I don't know what, but then I got thinking about it more. I've main evented almost every town that we've ran in, but the Coliseum. And
Mhm.
I told him, I was like, I really want to main event the Coliseum if I can. And he jokingly said, you could probably do it if you wrestle me, haha. And then it
What
happened.
happened? Yeah.
Last show of the year, last show in the Coliseum for wrestling as of right now,
Right.
we got to be an event, and it's like the big moment at the end was we beat High Society, who have held the tag titles at, like, hostage basically. And then at the end of that, after we had our moment, that's where the Trend Killers turned on us. So it was a story on top of a story, and it was just like that match too was just like really some of our best work.
Sure. And you mentioned the Coliseum. I've mentioned it tons of times. It's nobody knows really what's going to happen. I guess it's being renovated, but it's such a great place for pro wrestling, and it's a big deal for WWE. Like you said,
Yeah.
you wanted to main event the Coliseum. That really meant something to you, and you got to do it. And then you were the last wrestling show as far as the old Coliseum. That's got to be really special. I mean, that has to be
Yeah.
something that, all these wrestlers, because I know a lot of people, a lot of, like, Ray will brought up Robert Gibson and the Rockers and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
it's the history, and you're part of it now. I mean, like, that's a huge thing.
I mean, yeah, it's like I can go on knowing in the rest of my life that I was the last match at the original Coliseum. So it's like it's just it's very cool. Like
Yeah, yeah, it's very
again, like
special.
wrestling here lately has just gotten me a little emotional, and it's just like that was one of the things I really wanted to accomplish. And what
Right.
was cool was my very first match was in that building.
Yeah. See, that's awesome. That's one of those great stories of pro wrestling that I think need to be told more and need to be out there and stuff like that. That's really awesome, man. What got you into pro wrestling? Was it a certain wrestler? Was it a certain event? Did you go to an event? Kind of what got you into it?
So when I was growing up, we didn't have cable, but like '04, '05 SmackDown on, I think it was UPN,
Yeah.
I'd have to hide from my dad that I was watching wrestling because he didn't want us watching, violence and stuff like that because we
Sure.
grew up in like a super Christian home. Nothing wrong with that,
Right.
but yeah. So I had to hide it from my dad, and then like my siblings were kind of watching it with me a little bit, but they like instantly grew up out of it. But like I stayed a fan, and like that era of SmackDown was like what got me into it. You got your John Cena's, you got Chris Benoit on there, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero. I'm not gonna lie, John Cena was like one of my favorites at the time because I was like a kid, and
Yeah.
that was like the coolest thing going on there. That was when it was literally right before WrestleMania 21 was when I started watching.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then so you grow up, you're watching SmackDown on UPN.
Mhm.
When when did you when did you kind of get more than that? When was it that, oh man, you got to see a lot of the old Raw stuff, or do you go back still and watch old
Oh yeah. Oh
WCW,
yeah.
old Attitude Era? Is there anything that, like, I go back, I watch modern wrestling. I know what's
Mhm.
going on, but I
Yeah.
go back and watch old stuff way more than I watch the new stuff. Do you still do that, or are you just kind of keeping tuned in to what's going on right now?
So I watch a little bit. I've gotten a little bit more into the modern stuff here lately with all the build to WrestleMania and stuff.
Mhm.
But I wasn't that much into the modern stuff till here recently.
Mhm.
So I would always go back and like watch because like the more I study the past stuff, the more it helps motivate me to want to do better in the ring.
Sure, and that's what a lot of people talk about. They'll pick things out. They'll, oh, this
Hmm.
worked back then. I really like how that worked. I want to try and make it work today. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Have a dream match? Is there a match that you're just like, I've seen that person, I want to get in the ring with them? Or is it just kind of you just kind of, there's so many to pick?
Yeah, there's way too many to pick, but I don't I don't know. Like it's hard to yeah, it's just hard to pick. I can't even tell you off the top of my head who would be the one person to pick.
Do you have do you
Now,
have do you have someone in WWA that you want to work with?
the one of two people that I have not worked with yet, it would probably be Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like I've never worked him in a singles match, and it's just like, who better to prove yourself against? Because I've wrestled Ray before, and who better to prove yourself than the man that basically broke you into the
Right.
wrestling business?
Now, kind of walk me through. They WWA just released on Facebook, I believe today, which we're recording this on Saturday.
Hmm.
That they're doing the open casting call. Is that
Yeah,
they do it a couple times a year. I've seen it come up. Is that how you got into it, or did you kind of just know somebody to get into it?
it was kind of the know somebody, but not even that. It's just I reached out. So like the very first WWA show I ever went to was it was Brace for Impact in 2018. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they had like a bunch of like Impact people come in, and it was a big show. I went there, I watched it. I was like, "Hey, this is pretty cool." And this is like right in the town that I was living in, which was Owensboro at the time. I'm originally from Chicago, but I had moved to Owensboro like that year, and then like I just randomly started adding a bunch of them on Facebook. I messaged Ray, and then he told me to talk to Chris, and then I talked to Chris and met with him in a Livermore show. We sat down. He kind of got a feel for me and what I was, trying to do. And like at the time, I just wanted to be a part of it, not know that I wanted to be a wrestler eventually. But he was just like, when do you want to start? And told him like when I could start, and then I started. I started as a camera dude. Then Drake Jackson, he had just turned heel, and he basically took me to be his stooge for a couple weeks.
Okay.
And like once I got done with that, I went back to camera, and then Chris pulled me to the side and he said, "Hey, we got this tryout coming up. I'd really this your opportunity right now if you want to be a wrestler." And then like I told him, "Yeah, I'd love to be a wrestler now." So I went, did the tryout. It was just this was funny is it was me and another guy that went to the tryout, and like I was the only one that basically kind of made the cut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
See, that's why I didn't know. Like I said, I just saw that this morning. Is I didn't know if it was like a huge turnout for those, if they, I mean, or if it's just kind of
they can be.
yeah,
That was just mine. Every single one I've seen after that was like a decent turnout.
yeah. And I mean, what is that? Is that kind of like they go through, you run the ropes, you do some holds, or is it just kind of to see if people really want to be
You do
there?
a you if it sees if you really want to be there, and they have you do a variety of things
Yeah.
really. just to see if you can physically handle it, mentally, both physically and mentally.
So you go through that, you get into it. Excuse me. You get into it, and then like you said, you were the cameraman. Now you're getting in the ring. There's obviously a lot of nerves. There's obviously a lot of, I want to do this. Can I do this? Kind of go through like that first match, like that you hit the curtain, you're getting out to the ring. Were you nervous? Were you excited?
Oh yeah.
And then just kind of how did that all work out for you?
So I started training in April of 2019. My very first match was of Halloween Hell 2019 that same year, and it was against Tyler Hawkins and Logan Legit in a tag match.
Okay.
And like just all day I was just like I'm nervous, but I'm excited, and then it's just nerves that are an all-time high, and then it's just like, am I going to be good enough to do this, or and then we went out and we performed, and I was just like, oh, I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of get that taste of it and then you're ready to go. And
Oh yeah.
you've become what I see as a fan favorite. You and MK Swift have become a top tag team when you guys are a team. So you guys have been faces most of the time, or you have been a face
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
And I talked to Jake Bravado about something similar last week of him being a heel. Is there ever a time that you're like, I want to make the switch? I want to be a heel and try that out? Or are you really cool with just being a face and kind of going that route?
I'm really cool with being a face because there's this term that somebody told me. It's easy to get people to hate you, but it's a lot harder to get people to love you.
Sure.
So I'm a man who likes that type of challenge. So it's like either way, I'm gonna do whatever's needed. But
Right.
me personally, I prefer to be a baby face.
Yeah.
It's just what I've done most of my life, my professional wrestling life at that. And then there was like one time, like when I wasn't with the WWE, I did a little heel turn up north when I was wrestling in Indianapolis a lot. But I mean, that was okay. But it's like that. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's not me.
And that's I know I keep bringing up this match and you talked about being very emotional about it, but there's just that stipulation and that angle that I like so much. Your guys is the way it ended, it could have went either way. It could have
Yeah.
been just that breakup and we're all sad to see it, or there could have been a turn and just a beat down
Yeah.
in the middle of the ring, So that's kind of what I wanted to know, I kind of want to ask you about being a heel if that had been thrown around at some point. But because it's most time when you see a tag team break up, take DIY for example, like a
Yep.
couple years ago, Chamba just put a beating on Johnny Gargano. You know what I mean? For like a good 5
Yeah.
minutes, put him through a table, beat him up and down the aisle. And I just didn't know if that was going to be something that when this match was coming up, I didn't know if that was going to be something that would happen.
Yeah. So what's funny was, the same thing happens with wrestling every time. The tag team breaks up, one person turns on the other. But with this one, we kind of changed it up. It's just
Sure.
like, we be different. We wanted to be different with this one.
Yeah.
And what's funny is you bring up that DIY story because I was messing with MK as we're crying in the ring and being both emotional. I grabbed him by the arm and I whispered the same thing Tommaso did to Johnny. I said, "This is my moment." And he's like, I was trying to mess with him to try to make us laugh to lighten the mood, but
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
no, it was just when I told Chris about, I'm trying to make him laugh or whatever to lighten the mood, he's just like, wrestling's all about emotion, so just let that shit out. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we did. I
And
mean, I
that's
still was trying to make him laugh, but it was just like I kept saying, I was like, all right, where's the barbershop window?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's why there's so many tag team breakups that end up somebody turning. And I like
No,
that.
but
I like that you guys are being creative about it and doing it that way instead of, somebody getting a beat down in the middle of the ring. So, what do you have I mean, you're mostly a tag team guy. Do you have a favorite tag team that you've watched or just one that you're a huge fan of?
Can I give you a variety of options?
Sure, absolutely.
I was a big DIY fan. Them FTR,
Yeah.
um, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, because those matches were just awesome to watch. Um, trying to think, there's another one. There's another one. I was a big Hardy's fan too,
Mhm.
and that I'd say that's my list of tag teams I really enjoyed watching. I'm sure there's more. I just thinking off the top of my head.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's pretty.
You mentioned a lot of great tag teams, and then FTR is basically running the show on AEW. They're probably the best tag team they have. And then DIY is back together. They probably going to go on a solid run.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Hardys, and to me, I always because when you think of the Hardys, you have to think of Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys.
Oh yeah.
And to me, out of those three teams, just because of what they did, the TLC matches, the ladder matches, these incredible matches over the years, I've always leaned towards the Dudley Boys being the best out of that three. And I don't know if that's because I'm older and I watched them in ECW. You know, like those were my favorite in that entire time. But the Hardys, man, there was kind of like we were taping this on a Saturday, so this is before WrestleMania. So Matt Hardy was talking with Chris Van Fleet this week, and he didn't say they're going to return. They kind of tried to push it. I mean, I don't see it happening like this weekend at WrestleMania.
It happened a couple years ago.
It was a couple years ago in the ladder match. So are you going to watch that ladder match at WrestleMania? I'm sure that is that's the one I really want to watch out of night one. I know everybody wants to see The Rock and Roman and Cody and stuff. But
I want to see how they get it done with 12 people.
Yeah. And for me, I just want to see Awesome Truth win the titles so bad.
Me too. Me too. And I was just like, I was watching Awesome Truth when I was in like elementary school, and it was like, I mean, they were heels then, but it's like, what good of a moment will it be where R-Truth finally gets his one up on the Judgment Day? Because his stuff where he was trying to say that he was part of Judgment Day, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I was so hilarious.
And when the guy's been doing it forever. People don't realize how old he really is. He's an older guy. And he looks like he did when he was the NWA champion a long time ago. You know what I mean? Man,
and he moves like he's really young.
Yeah. Yeah. I love R-Truth. I think he's great. All right, man. We'll go ahead. We'll wrap it up with that. Where can people find you on social media? Okay, so on Instagram, I'm Munchie underscore 531. That's the same for TikTok, and I believe that's the same for Twitter. And then on my Facebook page, just Munchie Gonzalez. Awesome, dude. Everybody knows you can check out my stuff on Instagram at Wrestleverse, YouTube at Wrestleverse, all that great stuff. Thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate you doing this for me. Have fun.